Yo, what up, everyone? I'm Rahim here, owner of Rapping and Snacking, getting into another hip-hop hot takes provided by y'all through my Instagram. I'm going to take some more on YouTube, too, so stay tuned on, my little channel feed on YouTube. And, I'll ask some questions there and answer some of my favorites. Hit me up on Instagram and TikTok at Rapping and Snacking. Love doing these series because it's always fun to see what people think and what people think is a hot take and what is not. So let's go ahead and get into some of them. First off, we got someone here named the Nerdy Kid 2001, and then this person is saying Illmatic is not a top 20 hip-hop album of all time. I would consider that to be a hot take because I feel like most people do consider it to be one of the premier albums in hip-hop history, many of which would claim it to be number one, if that not, number one, then to definitely be in the top five. And I actually don't know where I sit on this take. I thought about it just for a brief moment, and it's actually one of those things where I really want to go ahead and agree with this person because I just don't like stereotypes in hip-hop and in a lot of things sometimes, and I kind of just want someone to kind of go against the grain and to just kind of shake the world a little bit and just not fall into these trends and stuff like that. But you also just have to keep it real, right? And Illmatic is a phenomenal album, and it definitely does have its pros and it does have some cons as well. And I think 20 is too wild of a number for me to go ahead and definitely agree with this person. And to be honest, in my top 20, it is in there. But I think it begs for people to really try and listen to other stuff too, because and this is kind of where I'm going with this point is I remember particularly in the past 10 years, because I've been having my Instagram for over a decade now. I think I started in 2010, maybe 2011, and I've been posting my collection all the time. Every day I was posting my collection, but what I noticed when other people started posting their collection, a lot of people were posting Illmatic, and they're posting all these albums that you just see over and over again. You'd see Illmatic, you'd see Enter the Wu-Tang, you'd see The Chronic, you'd see these same albums over and over and over again, and you're just asking the question, do people listen to anything else, or are they all listening to the same artists, the same albums, and the same, years? And that is always something that kind of made me, question, do people really like hip-hop, or do they only like 20 albums, right? So that's why this is very interesting. With that being said, I'm not going to go ahead and agree with this person, but, there are so many great albums out there, and it makes you really think, well, can you put 19, 20 albums above it? Well, there are at least that many albums in that caliber or very close. So very interesting. I do like this. I think it opens up good discussion. Let me know what y'all think below on that take right there. Next up, we got someone right here, Milky Way. I'm guessing it's Milky Way 3000. This person is saying, not really a hot take, but maybe unpopular. Big L is the absolute best of all time, along with Kendrick. So I actually replied to this on Instagram briefly, and I think this is kind of a hot take. I've never seen anyone... Actually, I have seen people mention Big L to be the best of all time, but I've never seen people mention Big L and Kendrick as their two favorites, because to me they're just so different, one being from Harlem, one being from Compton, also just so many years apart and very different styles. So they're kind of I don't want to say on opposite sides of the spectrum, but they're definitely on different parts of the spectrum. You have Big L, especially street, rugged, punchlines. That's what he's mostly known for. Obviously, he has more depth than that. Then you have Kendrick, very experimental, pretty political. He can also get street, those are just some of the main things with Kendrick. And they're very, 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 very different. I think they're both extremely dope. No way do I think they're the best. I think that Big L is awesome, and to me, he's possibly the biggest what-if in hip-hop. I've touched on that. If you've been following this channel, I've touched upon that quite a few times. Big L being possibly the biggest what-if, and the other biggest what-if would probably be the DOC. And there are others too, but those are the two that strike me the most in that category. Then we have Kendrick, who we've been able to see his career unfold a lot more, and a lot of it is extremely experimental. And in my opinion, a lot of Kendrick's music kind of fails in the replay category. It's very hard to replay a lot of his music. Definitely doesn't sustain a ton of listens, at least in my opinion, but he's got some excellent stuff. So would I say they're two of the best? No. Do I think they're two awesome artists? Yes. Would I put them in my top 10? No. Would I put them in my top 50? Maybe. I don't know. There's a lot of great MCs, and it's easy for you to be damn, you wouldn't put Big L in your top 10 or top 20 and Kendrick in top 10. I mean, dude, hip-hop's been on for over 40 years, like 50 years. Granted, you know, there's been so many awesome artists from so many regions, and there's so many that have been out and we just haven't heard yet. And you just gotta understand, it's a big-ass world out there, and a lot of people are rapping, so it ain't that easy, man. Next up, we got someone named Nethlock 2001, and this guy's dropping. This guy, whenever I do a hot takes video, this guy drops 20 takes, and it's like, bruh, I can't do all your takes, bro. This guy's hilarious. So Nethlock, or it's Neflock, I remember he corrected me once, my bad, bro. He said the game wouldn't have been as famous as he is had he stayed in G-Unit. Yes, I 100% agree. The game, he made the most of his opportunities. The documentary, which was hugely helped by 50 Cent and the gang, the game went multi-platinum off that. It was a great album. It was a dope album. And I think the game was still developing as an MC. I think from a lyrical standpoint, from a rapping standpoint, that was one of his weaker projects for sure. But from an overall product, it was a great album, right? So he made the most of that. He made Doctor's Advocate, he made LAX, Red Album, etc., mixtapes in between. He made more albums. And I think that he was able to stay popular and really big. And I think he's definitely the biggest person who is from that G-Unit branch, aside from 50 Cent. 50 Cent is obviously the most popular. I mean, he's got his TV stuff, he's got his, he had Vitamin Water, he had the Bitcoin stuff, he had so much stuff going for him, and he also just sold a lot of albums as well. The game, though, is definitely in second in terms of, popularity, and then we have Lloyd Banks, who'd probably fall after that, then Young Buck, then Yayo. But the point is, yeah, I definitely agree with that. If he had stayed in G-Unit, I don't think it would have been as well. He wouldn't have been as well received, especially his solo career. He wouldn't have been able to put in as much work in that. And then also, if you think about it, Lloyd Banks, Young Buck, and Tony Ayo, no one really talks about their albums after their first couple. No one really does. Now Lloyd Banks, in particular, is starting to do more stuff with his recent albums, and now he's getting more notoriety and more acclaim in those regards. But, I mean, that took a long time. That was a big gap. So it's very interesting. I definitely agree with this. The game, aside from all his corny stuff, his antics, his personal weird stuff, just his headline drama, all that stuff that's super annoying, he's an extremely talented artist and rapper, and you got to be able to separate the two. Shout out to this guy. Next up, we got someone here named Villain is Chillin', saying Biggie Smalls would have given us some of the greatest hip-hop albums of the 90s if he hadn't passed. That's interesting because Biggie did give us two great albums in the 90s, so maybe he could have squeezed out one more. I mean, he passed away in March of 97. As Cannabis was quoted once saying, the greatest rapper of all time died on March 9th. So, yeah, I mean, he probably would have squeezed one more out, right? Pause. But, I mean, he already blessed us with two albums. So, yeah, I think he would have put out more stuff in the 2000s, maybe the 2010s, if he would still been rapping. And it's a shame we didn't get to see Biggie, but it's an interesting way this person worded this. And Ready to Die, in my opinion, is one of the best rap albums of all time. I think Life After Death definitely has some filler. I would have preferred if it was trimmed, that's for sure. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I also don't think that's totally a hot take, and it's kind of a weird one because when he passed, it was the late 90s. So interesting stuff. Next up, we got someone named Rapzines. This is actually a homie of mine. He's a really, really, really good dude. Also has an incredible magazine collection, so peep him out. He says, The Predator is better than Death Certificate. This actually annoys me because this guy, I like this guy, Pause. He's a good guy. He's dope. He's got a great collection, and I'm shocked that he thinks The Predator is better than Death Certificate. The Predator, in my opinion, being Ice Cube's third best album, with Death Certificate being his best album, and in my opinion, the best album in hip-hop history. I actually have The Predator right here, just because I wanted to look at the track list and not fumble on any of the tracks. But, I mean, the way that this album starts off, from track 1 to 8 in particular, is so phenomenal. I thought that Ice Cube was really, really, really going to get close to the Miracles Most Wanted. I didn't know if he was going to get to Death Certificate level, but I was like, wow, he's going to at least get close to Miracles Most Wanted, really neck to neck. And then when you get the Fuck 'em insert, you get Dirty Mac, Don't Trust Him, Gangsta Fairy Tale 2. I'm just like, the Dirty Mac, so track 9 and track 12, I'm just like, or I'm not going to count the insert for track 9, but track 10 to 12, I'm kind of like, they're good, but they're not great. They're nowhere near, on the lesser tier tracks of America's Most Wanted, I think those are better than the lesser tier tracks of The Predator and Death Certificate. So, you got some underrated cuts on here, like track 14, which is towards the end of the album. That's Who Got the Camera. It's one of the dopest songs in Ice Cube's catalog that nobody talks about. You got like some dope inserts in here, like Integration, all that. And then you got the Check Yourself, which is the lesser popular version with Dawes Effects. This is the album cut version, not the remix, the message remix that most people have heard. But I like that too. But I mean, the highs here are extremely high. But the lows here, I don't want to say are low, but they're not as good as the lows on his other albums like Death Certificate and America's Most Wanted, and that is a big, big, big distinction to me. I think The Predator is an awesome album. It's really, really, really potent, and I think, and also my favorite track on this album is not It Was a Good Day, which most people's favorite is. That's why I think a lot of people pick The Predator as his best album. But his best track on this album, in my opinion, is When Will They Shoot? I think Ice Cube does a tremendous job on that song, especially from how it transitions from the first day of school intro into When Will They Shoot. It's a masterpiece. And then when you hear the last line of the song, when he says, and then I heard a shot, boom, that's a perfect closer to a song. It's one of the best songs in his entire discography. I think it's extremely underrated. I can just keep talking about this album. It's like exceptional. Some of the stuff he does on here. But my guy Rapscenes, what are you talking about? Call me. I'm offended to say the least. I know you're trying to get something out of me. You're ridiculous, bro. You're ridiculous. All right, last take. We got someone. This is Nethlock again. God, this guy. I told you, he dropped so many takes. This guy said Eminem's best album is Recovery. Hot take for sure, but I really think it is. So I wish I actually DM this guy and ask him why he thinks it is, because I want to really know why anyone would consider this to be his best album. That's not to say it's not a good album. I think it is a good album. I think it is dope. I think after Relapse dropped, a lot of people were scratching their heads and didn't like it. And at first, I was one of those people who didn't like it, and now I really enjoy a lot of Relapse. Not all of it, but I enjoy a lot of it. It's really good. So Recovery was kind of one of those albums that really helped people kind of get back into Eminem for people who thought Relapse was a dud or not that good or too weird or whatever. Recovery did a lot of good things. I think it started off extremely well with Cold Wind Blows in particular. I thought that was just the Eminem that we wanted, that we craved, that we needed. But then some of the stuff that Eminem on Recovery that he does that is kind of a head-scratcher is this is some stuff that he started to do in a lot of the albums in the middle to towards the current part of his career, or from the middle to later on in his career. He started to feature a lot of artists that weren't necessarily rap artists or were artists that were more popular. And if you recall earlier on in his career, he started to diss people like that. He dissed the Backstreet Boys. He dissed Britney Spears. He dissed the Christina Aguileras, the Instincts. He dissed these people. Obviously, he had some things with people who he didn't diss but were also, not hip-hop, like Dido on Stan, but that was different. He was dissing like the pop artists. Whereas on this album, you hear him with Pink, which was shocking. You heard him with Rihanna, who he ended up touring with. I mean, that's a little different. But then you also heard him with Kobe. So it was very interesting, some of like his approaches on like this album. This album, in turn, sounded a little more pop, a little more like stadium anthem with some of the songs, as I had also heard some of these live on tour. So it was very interesting, some of the choices he made on this. And then some of the sonics on this were also interesting, like Love the Way You Lie was interesting. What was that one? Won't Back Down is interesting. We got No Love was interesting. Spacebound was interesting. Cinderella Man was interesting. 25 to Life. So some of these songs are, I want to say, a little different from what I was expecting from Eminem. That doesn't mean they're bad, because a lot of those songs that I mentioned I do enjoy. But to go ahead and say this is his best album, no way. I think Eminem at his best was when he didn't care what anyone thought of him. And this album, and as much as he says he doesn't care and he doesn't give a crap and all that stuff, he does care, because it's very easy to trigger Eminem. That's why he gets in so many diss battles. That's why he's dissing The Source. He's dissing Cannabis. He's dissing all these people. It's because it's easy to get to him. I mean, Kamikaze was a whole album based on retaliating from people who didn't like Revival. You know what I mean? So Recovery is pretty much like a lot of people who didn't like Relapse, where he has that line, where does he say? Encore. He said the last two albums didn't count. Encore, I was on drugs. Relapse, I was flushing them out. Like, bro, those albums are part of your life. Like, you did them. They do count. So I'm kind of going on a mini sidebar here, and I dropped the CD. I'm kind of going on a mini sidebar right here, but Recovery is dope. Is it in his top 3 albums? No. Is it his best? Definitely not. I think Marshall Mathers LP holds the crown as his best, and I would really like to see the rationale of anybody who thinks this is his best album, or even a top 3 Eminem album. I'd also be shocked on that, but it's a good one. Like I said, it's got its positives, but it also does have its negatives. Definitely would like to see what people think about that. I really love these hot takes. It just makes me kind of go crazy. And I want to see what everybody thinks. Let me know if y'all have any suggestions for any videos, any things on these takes that y'all want me to talk about more, if you think these people are crazy or I'm crazy or whatever. Appreciate y'all as always. Hit me up on Instagram and TikTok at Rappin' and Snackin'. I need to drink some water. I'm out of here. Bless up. Peace.